How's it going? I'm your pal Mike Squires, and this is the Couchers Podcast, episode number 224. I'm my guest, Mike Hickey. Mike Hickey is he's played in Venom, Cathedral, Carcass. He's known for being involved in death metal, but he also is a talented guitar tech, has worked for Joe Bonnamassa, and both Hall and Oates. What the fuck? It's crazy. We get into how that was bridged and how that came to be, which was honestly, I was pretty interested in hearing that story. I had a great time talking with Mike. We went on. I think we could have gone on for hours, hours more, and I would always have another question for him. And he's a great storyteller, so I hope that you enjoy this conversation. If you are enjoying the Couchers podcast, please support us at Patreon. Patreon.com/couchriffs. That is what makes the music videos for sure happen. And it definitely helps make this happen. We put out a podcast every week in the month of April. We put out 2 every week for Drummer Awareness Month. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time, and all of the services that we use do cost a lot of money. And so the Patreon support definitely takes that pressure off of me. So thank you very, 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 very much. Also visit couchriffs.com and click over to the Etsy store. We have a bunch of t-shirts over there and hats. A bunch of trucker hats. We got a new t-shirt design. Go check those out, please. Pretty please. And lastly, I want to talk about a couple of sponsors. First of all, I want to talk to you about River City Guitars in Spokane, Washington. River City Guitars is a by appointment, vintage, used boutique guitar store. If you are traveling through Spokane on vacation or going across the country or on tour, whatever it is you're doing, go check out River City Guitars. Call ahead, make an appointment to stop and see them. And if you have a vintage guitar, amp, some effects, drums, recording console, whatever, something cool or something used that you want to sell, hit them up. They are super cool to deal with, very fair. I sold my vintage hummingbird through them. I would not send you anywhere that I wouldn't go myself. That's my word. So be sure to follow them on Reverb. They have a ton of stuff, and it's just slowly getting populated onto their Reverb store. So follow them there, and you'll get notified of all the new stuff that they post. Thank you, River City Guitars. Also, thank you very much to Variety Coffee Roasters in Brooklyn, New York. I'm drinking some Variety right now. Every single morning, I drink Variety coffee. I don't know what greater endorsement I can give. So, follow them on social media. Go check out their subscription service. This is how I get their coffee. You go over there, you click a couple buttons, and it just shows up at your house. You never have to worry about running out of coffee. You never have to worry about putting it on your shopping list. It just shows up. It's magic. It's a modern world. Embrace it. We love it. You don't want to wake up and not have coffee. If you are in New York, go visit their cafes. They have a number of cafes, 7, I think now, in Brooklyn and in the city. So do that. Go check it out. We're going to get into the episode now. Mike Hickey is an ultimate dude. I hope you love the shit out of this because he's fucking great. Also, look for him in an upcoming Couchers video that is going to be amazing. It might take a minute to put together. It's a little ambitious. But don't forget the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And don't be a fucking asshole. Who counts down from 6, right? People don't even count up to 6, except for Dave Matthews.
Was everything in 6/8?
Yeah, right?
Okay.
I don't know. How you doing? You got your mutt in your hands there. Is that the one you just posted about?
I did, yeah. I bought this on the on eBay for $570 in 2004. Promptly It was red with white stripes, and it became like a workhorse. But then, of course, it has stripes. So then I'm about to go to Europe and do some festivals with Venom, but I want to use this. And so I spray paint it black with Krylon, which lasts about 3 songs before the gauntlet rips the paint off, you know. And I remember Anselmo's on the side of the stage, and he's saying to me, you're peeling paint, brother. You know, I was like, okay, all right, thanks. Watch out for the pyro kid, you know. So then I sanded it again down back to the stripes, and I was like, what have I done? So I have a friend who paints Corvettes, and he says, I'll paint the guitar for you, you know. So he did it up, and now it's red, and it's staying red.
Yeah.
And I have 2 of these that were striped that the same guy painted. So one's black, one's red. Yeah. So
how many Charvels do you own? You own a grip of them?
I have 20.
20 Charvels.
Yes. And let's call it 18 because 2 of them are modern.
I mean, they say Charvel on them.
They do. And the thing is people go, oh, you've got 20. Oh my God. Right. But what's missing from any collector's viewpoint to the observer, the 20 something years, 30 years of acquiring things and not selling it at the first sign of an electric bill.
Right.
You know, and I've somehow managed to keep a lot of instruments. I buy and sell guitars all the time. It's a hobby. Right now it's lucrative, and it's it's a way to pay bills. But I've kept certain ones, and once I get to a certain number of things, if I get like 3 or 4, then I start becoming obsessed, and I want that one. And as soon as one comes available, if I have some scratch, I'm like, I'm going to get it. And so I've amassed this collection since 1983 was when I got my first one. So it's been progressive. And then in the past 15 years, I applied myself more and more to acquiring them. And the irony is the 2 mutts that cost the least amount of money get the most use.
They're your favorites.
Yeah, they're my favorite. Like I could literally sell the rest, but I won't. And I sold a couple this year because people approached me and they had the right dollar figures, like 5 figures.
Everything's for sale.
Everything is for sale. And, minus my dog. So then,
right.
And this, and I'm trying to, I haven't bought a guitar in a long time for me. I've acquired a couple things. People, as soon as you start to have any traction in music, whether you're in a band that's known or you're working regularly or you're a guitar tech, because, I do everything. So they want to give you stuff.
Sure.
So when I needed strings, nobody wanted to talk to me.
Right.
And when I needed a Les Paul, Gibson were like, who are you? And then years later, because of people I associate with, things I'm doing, then they want to be pally. Oh, here, have a Les Paul. Okay, I'll take it.
It's a great problem to have.
It is. And, people want to give you, not just me, but lots of guys, they want to give you pedals. They want to give you pickups. I don't have the time to put pickups in stuff. I have too many guitars to be experimenting. And pedals, I've got a whole shelf back here of pedals that never get used. So I've just started saying, why don't you give it to some kid who can't afford a delay or a.
You should take them, make a video, and then give it away as a promotional thing. That's a good way to.
And make it, you have to send your your tax return in and prove that you don't make enough money to buy the pedal,
Right.
and it it's just amazing though, like in this business or in sports or entertainment, once you do something, people want to be part of it and give it away.
Sure.
And meanwhile, there's some guy who's looking in his Sweetwater catalog, or if they have that, and or online, and going, if I could only even be in a room with a Soldano,
Right.
And I mean, I can't just go get a Soldano. I have plenty of amps, and it's taken my whole life to get the amps I have. I have 10 amps, and I know I have friends who have 100 amps.
Wait a minute. You have 20 Charvels, and that's just Charvels, and then
Yes.
10 total amps.
Yes. And, I have a couple 5150s that I've had since the 90s. I have some Friedmans that, I saved up, and I was mortified when I bought the first Friedman because it was $3,500. And this is back 2009 or so.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm on the phone with the guys at Tone Merchants. I'm like, I feel it. It's a lot of money for a Marshall,
Right.
And then I listened to the demos, and this is early on. So this is before it said Friedman. And so he made the Marsha and the Naked. Those were the two amps he made. And I saved up my money from touring, and I bought the Marsha, which I still have, and it's still my favorite amp. And it just was like the best 100-watt Marshall I ever had, except it had that extra gain.
That's your favorite amp?
The Marsha, yeah. So it's really, it's got a lot of gain, but still got that chimey clarity of a plexi.
Right.
And I've since acquired two more Friedmans, a Metro Friedman, which is supposed to be a copy of some famous guy's amp. I don't know, and so it's just a 100-watt head. You just dime it. And then I have a 100-watt Dirty Shirley that Dave made for Bonamassa. And Joe's playing, if you want to cripple him, you give him high gain. He likes that immediate headroom of a cleaner amp,
right,
in the front end. And so he used the Friedman for, like, I don't know, 4 songs one night, and he's like, get that out of there, it's not working for me. And so out jokingly after the gig, I said, if you don't want that thing, I'll buy it off you. And he's like, oh no, it's good to have, And I was like, all right, great. And then of course it just shows up as a Christmas present. So I use that a lot too. It's a lower gain, more of a classic Marshall 70s kind of sound. And I actually like it a lot for bass.
Like a JMP.
Things. Yeah, more so, and just with a little more gain. Little more. And, but it's a 100-watt version. And as far as I know, there's only 2. This one, and John Shanks has one as well.
So we jumped right into it. Let's reel it back a ways.
Sure.
Why did you pick up a guitar? Like, what was your inspiration to start playing, and what was your first guitar?
Well, the initial inspiration to actually get the guitar in hand would have been seeing Kiss on on something in like 1977,
right
around there, 76, 77. And, and I'm an impressionable kid, and everyone's talking about this Kiss. We see the fire, we see the makeup, the boots are amazing. And there's the blood. And then I get the record, and I finally, I get to borrow a guitar from my aunt. It's like a Silvertone piece of junk. And my best friend, who's 2 years younger than me, he gets a guitar. So we take tandem guitar lessons together at the same time. So it's like if you and I went to the lesson, we sat side by side and took the lesson.
Right.
And he still plays as a hobby. Mm-hmm. And he's a talented player so we both were Kiss freaks. And, you know, of course we had to have the shitty acoustics to get started. And then eventually after a year and a bit, we, you know, got our parents were like, come on, give me that electric. So somehow I end up with this equally horrible as the Stella T-Sco electric.
Yeah.
With a solid state Silvertone amp rig.
Sure.
And this is probably 1970. It's December of 77 or January of 78, because I have a Polaroid. The first time I went to see Kiss was February 2nd, 1978, and I'm on top of the little amp with my guitar posing in the Polaroid, you know, and I've got like a baseball jersey on with an ironed on Kiss thing that I bought, you know.
At the mall.
And so it just starts there. And then it, as anybody in that era, it starts to progress, because as you start to learn a few things other than the G chord and the D chord, then you want to get more gear. So I get an Ibanez Les Paul with a bolt-on neck.
Oh yeah.
But
Those are pretty good.
It was great. And it was a little fancier version. It had like a fancy tailpiece and the big thick
inlay.
It had no inlay. It had crowns like a Les Paul, but it was wine red. And I conned my grandmother into getting me a Mighty Mite pickup, mail order. And
how did you know that was something to do? For a kid, that's a pretty advanced thing to think about.
Well, we had seen in these, there was a couple of magazines. We had gotten our hands on a couple of guitar player magazines. So we saw the little ads for DiMarzio. They weren't quite full page yet. And we also, there was this magazine back then called Rock Scene. And that was based out of New York. So it had some DiMarzio information. And then we wrote away for this thing called Musician Supply catalog, which was like a little catalog. And they had these Mighty Mite pickups. And I had seen a Mighty Mite ad. And I'm like, I'm going to get one of those because it's cheaper than the DiMarzio, like Ace Frehley has.
Right.
And, you know, and so then, of course, I hooked it up wrong. And I had to take it to a guy who probably hooked it up wrong.
But so how old are you at this point?
I'm 12.
So you're 12 and you're already trying to swap out a pickup and solder in a pickup.
Yes.
You're like, I'm going to swap the pickup. It never even occurred to me with my first guitar that a part was detachable. Like it was just a single organism to me.
Sure. Like with the covers, taking the cover off a pickup. And I recall that part of it too was I tried to take the Ibanez pickup apart, and it was epoxied inside.
Right.
And this is the flying fingers on the, you know, the little bug.
Yeah.
And that's embossed in the gold cover. And those pickups were fine. I wasn't getting, nothing was better or worse, you know. And so that, you know, of course I wrecked the Ibanez pickup. So good thing I had the Mighty Mite. And then it just started, you know, we started reading about stuff. And this is right when guitar is starting to become modifiable beyond replacement parts. Right. So there's a new thing and a new thing, you know, and you can get brass. So instead of a plastic switch tip, I've got brass. And I ordered brass knobs, and, you know, just to make the guitar look cool. And, you know, that starts the process until Van Halen shows up. And then everything is fair game, right?
So you're like in the minority for our age group because you were playing guitar before he blew up.
Yes, my dad bought the first Van Halen record shortly after it came out, and, you know, I'm still taking mundane guitar lessons with a book, and and I haven't figured out how to learn a song off a record yet. And I'm amazed when I see someone play something like real. And my dad comes over one day and he's like, "Hey, I got this record. I think you're going to like it." And he bought it because he liked Running with the Devil. He heard it on the radio, and he liked the little melody and all that. And but then the rest of it was a little too edgy for him. Atomic Punk was just a little out of his game.
Yeah.
So he gives me this record, which I still have, and I don't know what to make of it. I don't have any oh yeah, cool, it's a rock album. But I'm looking at these guys, and they don't need makeup.
The images on there are just like stunning.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, Michael Anthony, the lines coming off Michael Anthony's bass, and Roth like is bent over in a circle, like his whole body's a circle. And if we always had a rumor that if you spun the cover fast enough, he was just a big circle, And so, of course, we're at this point. I'm meeting a couple other teenagers who have guitars, and we're reading the fine print. And we read about this Charvel company, and we see this ad. It's like this big, Charvel Manufacturing, and basically it's for a jack plate and a stainless steel trem arm that won't break. And we're like, what tremolo? What's a tremolo? I haven't even seen one yet.
Can I push pause for a second?
Yeah.
Is that I'm not into Fender trems.
Mm-hmm.
Do people break the trem arms?
Yes.
Or is that just like a thing? Like,
in fact,
you can walk in these shoes. That's like my advertising for my new shoe company. Like, you can walk in any shoe if you have a high level of tolerance.
If we just see how that's bent.
Sure.
That's ready to go.
Got it.
One more Yngwie lick and it's over. And so basically they break right there.
Right.
And then that leaves this in the hole.
Right.
So you have to take the whole thing apart and drill it. And
so are they cast?
This is, I don't know if it's some kind of pot metal, right. Zamac, which is zinc, and it's like zinc mixed with sand
and bullshit. Right.
Yeah. I mean,
McDonald's burgers.
It's not like a Floyd bar, which ain't going anywhere ever.
Right.
That that's there for the rest. This is from the 80s. That'll be there after I'm gone.
Right. When the cockroaches are gone, it'll be.
Yes. There. Yeah. This and Keith Richards will be there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, we had to take that sidestep because I was like,
cool.
wait a minute, that's a great marketing tool. Talk shit about someone else's thing.
Well,
subtly.
that's the thing with Charvel, which, of course, Charvel people know this, but most people don't know. It started as a parts thing, and it was kind of a conglomerate between this guy who owned Schecter, and then there was a guy.
A Schecter Strat in the 80s. Like a Schecter kit Strat. Because you could buy those kits.
Yeah. Right. And you'd see all the pictures of them with the fancy wood. So they were all connected, those companies, and Boogie Bodies, which turned into Warmoth. And so like Wayne Charvel had these parts and he'd screw them together and he made a logo. So he'd have like a Boogie Bodies neck and a Schecter body with this brass stuff. And so it started as a parts company, and it really they didn't build guitars until Grover Jackson bought the company and showed up with a pin router. Then he could cut his own necks and his own stuff,
Right.
And I mean, they get a lot of mileage at, Wayne Charvel got a lot of mileage out of the Van Halen thing, but he didn't cut necks and stuff at that time, and it didn't really, the real manufacturing didn't take place until Grover showed up, and then he revolutionized the whole guitar industry. All the big boys started copying him. Right. Everybody had a Floyd, everybody had a pointy head, even Gibson, everybody had a cast neck plate,
Kramer bought Floyd Rose. Is that true or false?
Kramer made an exclusive marketing deal with Floyd, because he made some in his home, back in the early days. He made them in a garage, I believe, with no logo. And they were really kind of crude. Like if you look at the ones that Van Halen had, they're pretty rugged looking. And, or Neil Sean's original one. Brad Gillis still has the same ones.
It's like looking at a real Zemitis.
Yes. Yeah. You're going to cut your fingers on the frets. That's how you know it's real. The fret work's horrible. And so later on, Floyd gets a deal. This is just before Kramer comes on the scene. Floyd gets a deal where he's making them in Japan via Fernandez. And then all of a sudden, Floyd makes a real deal with Schaller in Germany.
Right.
And Kramer, I think, was involved in that because Kramer's had Schaller tuners. They had Schaller pickups. And so they had an exclusive deal. So if you ordered a Charvel at that time, you would get a Charvel with a Kahler, which would be atrocious to any young kid who loves Van Halen because it doesn't say Floyd Rose.
Right.
So, I save up some money and I want a Randy Rhoads guitar, but I want a Floyd Rose. So I called Jackson, and so this will be the first year they make them, 83 or so. And I said, I'd like to get this with a Floyd. And they're like, well, we can't do that. We can put a Kahler on. I'm like, count me out. He goes, well, what we could do is you could go buy a Floyd Rose and mail it to us. So I walked from my dorm room at Berkeley College around the corner to EU Wurlitzer in Boston. And I bought a Floyd Rose, and I went straight to the post office and mailed it to Grover Jackson. And, again, doing stuff that people my age aren't normally doing, especially on the East Coast.
Right.
Because there's a whole nother thing going on in Southern California. It's like this imaginary, it's like Disneyland for guitar. First of all, where are they buying those shoes? Where are they buying those pants?
Their sister's shop.
Yeah. And once I started meeting girls, I realized I could get can I have that striped shirt from, I got a gig Friday. Hey, are you wearing girls' clothes? Damn right I am.
No, I'm wearing stage clothes.
That's right.
It's like the scene in that Rockstar movie. He's like, hey, do you have eyeliner on? He's like, I'm in a band.
Yeah. And the more you watch that movie, and everybody does watch it more than once, you start to really want that to be a real band.
It's pretty amazing.
It is.
Also, it's like the rare sighting of Zach sans beard.
Yes.
As a fully developed grown man.
Yes. Yeah, because wasn't there a period with Zach, like he had just started Black Label and he started growing this like mountain man beard, and he always used to keep it really triangulated.
Yeah.
And he wore like overalls and stuff, and I think Sharon was not happy at the time. What are you going to do?
He's vicious though.
God, terrifying.
He's vicious.
Terrifying. Like if you want ripping, he will rip on command.
He knows all the notes.
Yeah. He's great. I mean, and just what he did with Ozzy for starters, just all you got to do is take No More Tears as a completely perfect everything, right? Just amazing player.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love him. And he's a character, of course.
And secret deadhead.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Do you know the story? There was some kerfuffle with Dickie Betts one time.
Did you just tell me? Someone just fucking told me this story.
No, I didn't tell you.
Someone
telling you now.
Just told me this story, and I was blown away. I was like, what? And
so it's ironic because I was at that point in the 90s, I think it was. I was into this whole Allman Brothers kick in my brain, and I wanted to go see them. And So apparently in Saratoga, New York or something, at that shed up there,
Yeah.
there was something happened. Mr. Betts had a situation and had to not attend the next gig or something. So I don't know how they end up calling Zakk Wylde in the whole world of people you can call, because literally anybody that plays Southern
Warren.
rock. Yeah. Well, Warren was in the band.
Oh, he was already in.
So Dickie was the problem.
Right. He
had to take a day off. So Zakk comes in and they play at Great Woods in Massachusetts, which is where I would have gone to see them.
Right.
And I was like, I didn't have any money and I didn't want to drive all the way there and drive all the way home. And then I read about it. And I just remember Zakk saying that Greg Allman kept saying, brother, it's time to play all those notes. We got a long show, you know?
Someone told me that he was like being Zakk, you know, he's like whipping his hair around and stuff. And they were like, hey,
yeah, this is
you don't got to do that. you don't got to do that.
And I believe he always said that it was like he thought, well, this is my only chance to be in the Allman Brothers, so I'm going to give it everything.
Can you imagine?
Like that? Well, first of all, that takes a lot of nuts. That's a heavy catalog to have to just play.
Right.
So he must have spent a lot of time playing along to Elizabeth Reed and things like that over his lifetime. You know, it had to be ingrained in his head.
Right.
And I think we're talking, he's got, at that point, I don't know if he's got Pride and Glory going yet, but he would certainly be
early 90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, in Pride and Glory had a lot of that vibe mixed
with Sabbath.
Mixed with the Sabbath grind, you know, which, you know, I mean, Zakk plays a lot on my friend Derek Sherinian's solo records, which are metal fusion, you know, with a host of guitars guys. But there's a bunch of Zakk on those records where he's just going ballistic, and then, you know, they set it up so he's going to trade solos with Yngwie or trade solos, you know, with John Sykes, and, you know, and it's really cool to hear him kind of out of his comfort zone, where, I mean, his comfort zone is just ripping on guitar, right?
Yeah.
You know,
John Sykes is a hugely underrated guitarist.
And I don't know why he doesn't come out of the house, because I know you can live comfortably off Whitesnake 87, right? That's like,
yeah, sold a lot of units.
Yeah,
moved a lot of units.
Yeah, when units were movable. And he must have done well off of that, because, I mean, think about it, he was already out of the band
when the record came out.
Yeah, and no offense to the guys Vivian and Adrian, who are both amazing in their own right.
Sure.
But I saw Whitesnake with them.
Oof.
It was not like if Sykes was there tearing the squeals up and the big bends, and
he's vicious.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, my first encounter with him was accidental, because I bought Thin Lizzy, Thunder and Lightning, and I'd never heard of him, but I knew that there was something different on this record. And so, of course, I read John Sykes, and I do a little backtracking. I read some Kerangs, and I'm like, oh, he was in Tigers of Pantang. Well, who are they? You know,
right.
Which I later end up living in Newcastle, and that's where Tigers are from. And, you know, and then I run into those people in the bar, and right. I still don't know what they sound like. Even
okay. So many sidesteps.
Sure.
Once you start getting into fudging with your guitars, you're swapping pickups, you're like, did you have an original, like, non-locking nut Floyd Rose installed on a Super Strat?
I later bought
in high school, I'm talking about.
Yeah, I bought out of a little newspaper called The Want Advertiser. I bought a Floyd Rose rig, so a non-tuning bridge and of course, the clamp on the top. And I built this Van Halen guitar thing, and I took a drill and I drilled 2 holes up here, crooked, and drilled 2 holes down here, and I put the thing on. It's not in the right spot or anything, right?
Right.
And I screw the pickup in, but it works. So we're all like, look at this thing, and we're taking the strings, and we're, oh wow, man, this thing's amazing. And so then the local guitar dealer, my friend wants to buy a Charvel, and he says, well, you need to be a dealer, but I'll become a dealer if we can order like 3. So the owner of the store orders one, my buddy orders one, and then I wait and I see the guitar in person, and then I order one. And so my friend becomes the Charvel dealer in small town Massachusetts. And I have both my friend's guitar and mine from 82 and 83. And so
Wow.
they come with the Fernandez version with no fine tuners. And we figure out how to use them. And this is before you can pull up and there's routing and all that crap. And we get it working. But then as soon as Floyd makes a deal with Kramer and Schaller, you've got fine tuners. And we see Eddie switch to fine tuners. So we chuck these things for $50, and we order a brand new Floyd to put on our guitars. And
What do those go for now? The originals?
$250, $450,
Oh, that's
$750.
I would assume more like that.
It depends what they're trying to build. Good example is the first Floyds with the fine tuners are called whale tails, and they have wider saddles.
Right.
And if you look at any close-ups of Van Halen's Kramer, you'll see these wider, squarer saddles. And he's got 2 that broke, so he's got 2 regular ones in there. And last year, I bought a bunch of parts at a music store, and there was one of these Floyds in there. So I was saving it for a build. And then I'm like, what am I going to, I got 50 guitars. Why am I building a guitar?
Right.
So I throw it on eBay, and I forget what I put it up for, $4.99 or something, $3.99. And I immediately start getting messages. And what it is the guys who are messaging me don't know that I know who they are, but they don't know it's me.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, it's this guy, because I've seen him on a Charvel forum or something talking. And as soon as you put some of that stuff on eBay, or if I put this guitar up, those forums are going to go wild and go, oh, I played that guitar, it's no good. And then they're going to bid on it,
Right.
And so people are trying to buy this bridge off me. And I'm like, well, just bid on it.
That's the tremolo bar that doesn't break approach.
Yes. And so lo and behold, this thing sells for $1,800.
What?
And I'm like, okay, I'll take it. Because I bought it. Yeah. Oh,
that's Mr. Big. He likes to hang out. He makes an appearance in every episode.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, Biggie. Yeah,
my dog's sleeping, I think.
He's a sweet guy. Do you want to talk? Huh? No, he's kind of shy. He likes being on stage, but he doesn't like a microphone.
Well, it's like, my dog likes being in reels.
Right.
So she says.
Yeah.
Her career's taking off, But yeah, the Floyds can be valuable. Later on I went and I bought my friend's Charvel, and it had been modded and stuff, and I wanted to restore it and get an original Floyd with no tuners. And, it took me months to find the correct one. And then, it cost me like $350 or something. I was like, oh, so much money. And of course, out on tour on days off, I'm going shopping everywhere, anywhere.
Right.
And so I go in the music store, and, and me and Bonamassa would go, and a couple other dudes, and we split up. And Joe's going, "Oh, how much for that 62 SG?" I'm over there. "Hey man, do you got a junk box with some old 70s brass shit, or some Floyd Rose?" And they're like, "Oh, that shit, yeah." And they give me the box, and I start digging, and I end up buying Floyd's and brass knobs and all kinds of stuff, and just buying any of it. And these guys, a lot of times, they'll just give it to me. And
Wow.
they, I mean, I guess the free tickets are worth an old bridge,
Sure. Do you still
especially.
prefer the brass?
Well, I mean, I, I'm sentimental about it.
Right.
And because I have a lot of friends who like these kind of guitars, I like to acquire as much of the stuff as possible. And it's very lucrative because there's also guys who want to buy that stuff. I was in Canada one time, and this woman had a little tiny shop, and she had one DiMarzio brass switch tip thumbtacked to the wall. And I went, "Do you have any more of this?" And she goes, "What, like brass?" And I went, "Yeah." She goes, "Come in the back." And she literally had Schecter pick guards, control plates, knobs, all on the black cards that said Schecter. And I said,
Like
"Well,
new old stock.
yes, it's been sitting there since the 70s." And I'm like, "How much do you want for this stuff?" She goes, "Well, we'll just have to figure out which stuff you want." I'm like, "I want it all." And, she's like, "Well, it's going to be expensive." I'm like, "Okay, well, what's expensive?" And I think she's like, "Oh, that with the two pedals."
$300.
She was 400 Canadian. And I was like, and I bought it all, and I don't have any of that stuff left. That was years ago, but
Right.
I tripled my money over time,
Sure.
and I gave stuff to my friends who needed parts, and
Yeah.
and that's part of the whole shopping guitar safari experience is you find something your buddy needs, you find something you can make money on, you find something you've been looking for. And if you go on safari with Bonamassa, you say, "Hey man, how much for this bent tremolo arm?" And they're like, "That's $40, kid." And then he'll come around the corner with some like old clock or something. Go, "How much you want for the Gibson clock?" And they're like, "Oh, you can have that, Joe." And you go, "What?"
Guitar store owners love that guy.
They do. And the thing is, he pays. He buys a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and he's one of the smartest vintage buyers I know. His knowledge of old Fenders and the history. Like if I have a Fender question, I call him because he knows like, oh well, it should have this pot code, or if it's a Fender amp, he knows all the transformer codes and the speaker codes like up here.
Right.
And I know that about Charvels or like Sunburst Les Pauls or whatever. I have all these little trinkets of knowledge that I'm good at,
Right.
and he's good at that stuff. And once if you see his bus rolling up and you own a mom and pop guitar store, you could be handing the keys over by the end of the afternoon. Here's the pink slip. See you later, kid. You're gonna sell something.
Sure. So at a certain point, I imagine, you've got other guitar friends in high school. Do you
Oh yeah,
start playing in a band? Like, do you actually have a high school band? Is there
we have
enough?
we have a great rotten band. None of us can sing.
Yeah.
So, and we've discovered fusion music. So we know there's instrumental something out there. We do not have the ability to play said fusion music yet. But we can do a 3-chord jam, an E minor 7 thing, add a flanger. So we start doing some school concerts, me and my buddies, and they're kind of like where the whole class is forced to sit in the auditorium and listen to us play. And frankly, it's terrible.
But you don't care.
We don't care. We think we're it, right?
Yeah.
And then I finally get a cool teacher. He's in the cool band. They do all the cool songs. They do Riding the Storm Out. They do Strutter. right? I mean, they're doing April Wine. Uh, it's just, they're fantastic. They have Marshall amps, they have Les Pauls, they have Echoplexes, they have their own PA and lights. And I befriend this guy and start taking lessons. He's the bass player. And I'm like, how do you know all these songs? Your band's like, oh my God. And he's like, you just throw the record on, dude, and you learn it. And I'm like, so he throws on Led Zeppelin, Over the Hills and Far Away. And he goes, listen, that's a G chord. That's a D chord. Hear it? And he strums it. And I'm like, yeah, I hear it. I hear it. And he goes, okay, now go home and learn something else from this record. So I go piece something together. And then he's like, this is the A chord. You can really hear it. I'm like, yeah. So I don't even know there's other tunings at this point. I don't know that people tune to E flat.
Right.
I don't know there's an open tuning. And so
before the information age, before the internet, that was secret shit.
It was a secret society of these guys who either met a guy like I did who shared the information, or they just cracked the code somehow, and so he gets me going on this. And then I start hanging around his band being a nuisance. And I ride my 10-speed up and stand outside until they finally let me come into the jam room. Yeah. And then they take a liking to me, or they just like, the kid won't go away, we'll let him hang out, whatever. And they let me sit in and play a Kiss song, at a bar.
Wow.
Mind blowing.
And you're how old at this point? 14?
14-ish. Yeah. So I sneak in the bar. Thankfully, my mom was a bartender. So, I'd already been drinking all day. No. Yeah. So I'd been the bar people knew me locally because of my mom working. And, sure. So they were like, yeah, nothing's going to, and that was a different time. People weren't going to sue you and cause a big ruckus and throw a fit in the street on their, for TikTok or whatever. And so these guys let me sit in a couple times. Then I meet a guy who starts teaching me triads and inversions and theory. And he's got a band that's more like the Allman Brothers. They play Allman Brothers. They play Hendrix. They play Little Feat. And so I start hanging out with them. And they're a little rougher crowd, biker crowd. And they start letting me sit in. Then, for circumstances out of their control, maybe some of their band members would get a little inebriated, and they'd be like, hey, kid, play bass on this song till he comes, right. Till he gets out of his fog over there. Right. And so I just started like filling in, not being great or anything, but I had gear at this point already. So I got a Marshall when I was 14, and then never went, said, well, I better get a 212 combo so I'm convenient for everyone. No, I'm getting a stack, and I'm going to still have a stack forever.
Right.
I don't want, this cabinet only weighs 4 pounds. No, my cabinet weighs 100 pounds, and I'll stop using them when I can't pick them up.
Sure.
I can still do that. I can still hump them up to the top and make a full stack. So, that's how come I can still pay bills, because I'll go do that for you. And
I can't afford to pay you, so you're not going to pay many bills.
but the thing is too, after you're in the crew business for a while, you get to a level where you don't lift a lot of things.
Right.
You do a lot of pointing, heavy pointing. That goes over there.
Local crew.
Yeah. That's their thing. And once I found out that the IATSE guys are making way more money than I am, and getting a pension and benefits, like, I'm like, you can lift everything, dude. Oh, you don't want me to get in the truck? That's fine. Yeah.
I don't even want to be in there.
Yeah, but my I don't want to get dirt on my shoes. I just had them
how much
shined.
These things cost?
You see my gloves? They're white.
So yeah, so you start playing with the biker fellas.
Yeah,
and the guys playing biker rock.
Yeah, and playing pig roasts, parties, starting to be a little bit of a teenage wild man myself at that point. And then I get the driver's license, and then I can go anywhere.
Right.
And then I start meeting guys in other towns. So like me and my guitar buddy are walking through the mall one day, and this dude comes up, and I'm wearing a Randy Rhoads shirt, and he's like, "Dude, are you a guitar player?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And this guy's a couple years older, and he's in the college town, and he's got a band, and they do Scorpions and Gary Moore. And I haven't heard Gary Moore yet. So he lays Gary Moore on me, and I'm like, head comes off. I've got maybe one Scorpions record at this point, Blackout. So I don't even know Uli Roth yet or any of this stuff. And then all this stuff starts piling up, and we start reading. We're subscribing to Guitar Player by now, early 80s. Can't wait to get the guy can't get out of the mail truck fast enough for me, every month. And we start reading about this magical place called Berklee College of Music. And so this is like a guitar player's Disneyland. And this is just before Guitar Institute, MI.
Yeah.
Before that opens. And so we all set our sights. We're going where Al Di Meola went. That's where we're going.
Yeah.
And so after, in high school, we've got a couple of bar band things going on, playing with whoever. Then me and my friends, we start planning our exit strategy. And my buddy goes to summer class there. I'm signed up for September though. So I go down and hang out. While we're there, he meets in the summer session, he meets Derek Sherinian and introduces us. And they've got their little quasi group that jams a little bit. So as soon as I get in September, I arrive in Boston, the first person I look up is Derek. And he's like, I literally think we walked into each other on Mass Avenue in Boston, like random. And he's like, bro, yeah, we got a jam. So we start jamming, and we meet a drummer, and we find this bass dude who's like plays fretless bass. And we're like, this guy's got to be the best, right? And
no, he doesn't have frets.
Yeah, he does. You can't even hear the frets on the thing. And Derek's attracted to playing with me because I have a Charvel and a Marshall, and he's already fully formed with this lead synth thing that he does with the guitar type sound. So we got this little quartet, and we start jamming 6 hours a day. So you can get the rehearsal room at Berklee for 2 hours. So we sign up. I'll sign up for 6 to 8. Drummer signs up 8 to 10. Bass player 10 to 12. So we just get the one room and play and play and play. And it's not bad. It's not good. We're forming our style or lack thereof. And we're learning. But we're an exception to the rule of that school because I have a Marshall. I don't have a PV Bandit or a Polytone
Roland.
or...
Oh yeah, Polytone I don't is have big jazz amp, right? You don't have a JC 120. You don't have a
none of that junk. I've got a stack.
Yeah,
and I've got Charvel with the Floyd Rose.
You were never tempted to go down the Mesa rabbit hole, sort of that was like the super strat of amps, right?
I've had a couple, and the thing was, I always wanted one when I couldn't get one. And then when I got it, I didn't have a need for it. I didn't have a purpose, and I never clicked. And I always felt, unless your material is based around that sound, it didn't slice like a Marshall, and that mid-range thing of a Marshall for me is the real treat. Because once the solo comes, it's the sound on all the records that I love. It can go from a simple straight-in Marshall with a Les Paul, or you can go to the Blackmore angle with the single coils, or the Robin Trower, and the Van Halen angle. That's when it really starts to change, because we've got that bite of a Strat with the humbucker and the roaring Marshall, and I always had the Marshalls. I don't think my tone wasn't bad. It wasn't good. I didn't start thinking about tone until I got the 5150. That amp really, for the purpose I needed it for, to play heavy, down-tuned metal. It had such clarity and low end, and it still cut through. And I even added a Marshall into the rig, so it was a Marshall and a 5150. So I'd have both, the best of both worlds, you know.
Right.
And I used that 5150 exclusively from 1993 till about 2008, maybe. It was I just had that. And I had a couple of Plexi Marshalls, but once I got that 5150 thing, I felt like I'd found a magic potion for me, you know. And
right.
And also at the time I was using Ibanez's, and it really matched up good with the locking trem and the basswood on the body and the maple necks. And it was a thing in the 90s in the death metal scene, which was much smaller. There was a lot of Ibanez action at the time going around. So, and
well, they were one of the few guitar companies that continued to thrive in that period, right?
Yes. And it's funny too, because I've had the conversation with people at Ibanez, you know, this is going way back, but it talked about, they were like, you know, you should probably play more melodic music, because, you know, the Cookie Monster vocals weren't popular then.
Right.
It was, I remember the first time I heard these, you know, I went on this tour, my first time as a tech, and, you know, I'm going to drive the van and take care of these bands, Brutal Truth, Cathedral, and Carcass. And Brutal Truth comes out, and I only go on the tour because I know Danny Lilker from Nuclear Assault. Oh, it's his new band. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, he's cool. We'll drink some beer. It'll be great. Then I hear these vocals come out of Kevin Sharp, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then Cathedral come on, and they're so slow and ominous. I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna be a month before they finish the song. Then Carcass come on, and again they got the, you know, the vocals, and I'm like, but the riffs are great, you know. Right. So of course, after, you know, being on the road with them for 30 something shows, I'm starting to actually understand the lyrics. Like, the logo's becoming readable. You know?
Got a decoder ring.
Yeah. And of course, you know, then I got affiliated with all those guys because it was like, I happened to be there, you know, right. And then, you know, one dude gets in an argument with the drummer, and he's like, I'm going home. And they're like, who's going to play bass? I'm like, I'll play bass. You know, what the hell? And they're like, okay, you play bass, you know. And so
did the bass rig and the bass stay there on the road, or did you have to come up with some gear quickly?
No, what happened, you know, this is jumping ahead and behind, but, you know, I'm in the van driving, it's Brutal Truth and Cathedral in one 15-passenger van for 30 something shows, 16,000 miles around the whole country and Canada.
Those were the days.
Yeah. And I think I'm at the top of the game at this point. And so they have a tiffle at the end of the tour. People aren't talking or whatever. And the guy's like, I'm out. I quit.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you know, we've got more gigs coming up. They're going to do CMJ festival and stuff. And they're like, what are we going to do? I was like, oh, I can do it. You know, I'll help you out. I live not far. I can, you know, take a train to New York and whatever. So they're like, what kind of amp do you want? I'm like, I want a Galleon Kruger and Hartkey speakers. I don't know what these things sound like. It's just what I see in magazines, right?
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it seems cool.
It looked great. Yeah. Silver cones, right? And So I go do the gigs, couple gigs in New York, like showcase things, because Cathedral's about to get distributed by Sony. So they have to do this show, you know? And so we have a good enough time that they're like, do you want to come do these shows at Christmas in Germany? I'm like, yeah, okay. Then do you want to come on the European tour? Do you want to come to Japan? You know? And all in between this, you know, I'm working with Kronos from Venom on solo material, which is what we're trying to launch. So anytime I can get a free trip to England,
Sure.
I'll play bass. So I would like take on the weekend, I'd take a train up to Newcastle and work on new shit, or end the tour and stay in England. And so I ended up staying in Cathedral for months and months and months. And finally I was like, guys, you know, I really want to play guitar, and
Right.
not with you, no offense, you know, but I got to move on. I love the band, and, you know, great guys. And looking back now, you know, maybe at the time I didn't appreciate it as much as I should have, the position we were in musically, but I look back at it now and I'm really fond of having played in the, like, it's my favorite musical experience of playing in a band was honestly to play in Cathedral, which is really, you'd think it would be something where I'm playing lead and stuff, but I just had a lot of fun playing bass. You know, you play the bass a lot.
I love playing bass, man.
It's so much fun, and two less strings. And usually the other two strings, you don't touch those very often either. You know,
Yeah.
It's a great invention. And, you know, so that was
let's connect some dots. What happens in between Berkeley and driving the band in Cathedral?
All right. The short version is we're at Berkeley. And so it's me, Derek Sherinian, Al Petrelli's in our little gang from Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Yeah.
Fellow called Jim Odom, who was in a band called LaRue in Louisiana, and several other guys. And we're all like, what the fuck are we doing here? Let's go to LA. Let's go, screw going to school. Let's go take over the world.
So we fuck off school.
Yeah, we bail out, you know, a couple friends stay and graduate, and, you know, now hope they're having fun. And right. So, because I am. And so we go out there, and we all live together. We end up in the same building, living in apartments like adjacent of each other. And we just start trying to do stuff. So Derek's got a group. It's kind of an R&B funky thing up at this level of, you know, adult chords and everything. A couple other buddies there, they've joined a local group or whatever, and they're playing the clubs. I'm trying to get gigs, like big gigs, or what I think are big gigs.
You're going to auditions and stuff.
I'm going to auditions. I'm playing dress up. I go audition for this band called Poison, and I have to show up with makeup. You know, I read the Music Connection every day, every week, and circle the names and call. And I go to the Poison thing, and, you know, they're already at a full page ad in the BAM magazine level. They're selling out the Roxy or whatever, right. Gazzari's. I don't get the gig. And I'm not surprised, because CeCe DeVille walks in when I'm leaving. And I just looked at him like, oh shit, that dude looks great, right? He's got to be the guy. And sure enough, he was the guy. And then I meet this guy at a party, and he's got a band called LA Guns. And at this point, Tracy's not in the band. So,
right.
So I go and audition, and we jam a little, and they kind of like me, and the drummer really likes me, because we meet where we're at a party, and we met very late at night. And so him and I hit it right off. And so he's like, yeah, we'd love you to come and play, but you got to dye your hair black. And I was like, not going to happen. And and then, of course, you know, I start meeting people around town. I go audition for this band called Black Sheep, which was a guy called Willie Bass, and he had like Paul Gilbert and Kurt James on his record. And I didn't get that gig either. I actually went to that with a friend. Both of us went to audition at the same time, and that freaked the dude out. Like, you both want the gig and don't care which guy gets it. I'm like, yes, we just want someone to have a gig.
Right.
And
We're
so
friends. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, we're actually really friends and still friends. And so I meet this woman who's a manager, and she's like, I can get you a gig and you sign this contract and I get a percentage. I'm like, okay, great. So she brings me, I have this band Venom. They need a guitar player. And I'm like, I've heard of them. So
What year is this?
This is 86. So
I had already sold my soul to the devil in 85 with my little stereo and my In League with Satan record.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I remember I was walking home. I lived right off Sunset Boulevard. I was walking by the Palladium, and it said Venom and Slayer, and it was probably Exodus was there too. And I was interested in Yngwie and shredding and,
technical stuff,
more technical. And I hadn't gotten that influence yet of this heavy music. And so my roommate and I, we rent the Venom VHS at Tower Video, right?
What's your first impression?
Well, we both look at each other being schooled because my roommate was an MI guy. And we're like, what the hell is this shit? Because it's chaotic. It's noisy. Yeah. It's messy. But the stage show is reminiscent of Kiss. Kronos is making these noises on the bass, and he's got the red boots, and reminds me of Gene Simmons. And there's a drum riser, and I'm like, well, screw it. I don't care. I'm going. Let's do it. So make a deal to fly to England. And this is to show you how naive someone would be, and probably they still are. I don't ask about money, contracts. I'm like, I'm going to go join a band, and they have a drum riser, and it says 666 on it and everything. You're like, this is amazing. It's pretty fucking cool. And I go and get a passport, which I never had. I borrowed the money to get the passport. I had a photographer friend take the photo, and I load up a suitcase with, like 10 cassettes, some socks, and, what I think is heavy metal stuff to wear. And I grab a guitar, and I go to England. And we get there, and the first thing they do is nothing except go drinking.
Sure.
So we're in the bar like every night, and I'm like, where's this Kronos dude? And they were, the drummer's laughing at me, dude, and I'm like, well, what do you want from me? I'm just came from Hollywood, and so we finally go to play, and I've never experienced bass with that kind of sound and that volume, and Abaddon's bashing the drums, and it's not good, but it's not bad. It's just insane. Like, what is going on here? And I've got like a borrowed Carlsboro amp or something with a Suzz knob on it. And so we play a few songs, and everybody seems pretty cool. And then they're like, hey man, why don't you play Flight of the Bumblebee for me? And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. They said, it's on your demo tape. Not me. The tape had several guitar players. They thought I played Flight of the Bumblebee.
They flew the wrong guy over.
Pretty much. And
and thus launched your career.
And so, they've already spent the money on the plane ticket, and I'm already there. I've got fairly long hair at this point. What the hell, right?
Right. So you're adept at putting back pints of Newcastle.
Oh yeah, and so we're going to do all this stuff, but if you look at the history of Venom do some things, and then they stop. and then they do some things and they stop. So we record an album. We do 4 shows in Brazil. Things go bad in Brazil with the promoter. They steal the money. They steal our cymbals, our backdrop. We're kind of like left. We get there. We're like the Beatles of black metal, and then we leave like servants of nobody. So when we get to New York, they send me home. They go back to England. When they get to England, there's a guy looking for me because I don't have a work permit.
Right.
So I stay home for months and months. Then I go back and we finish up our record and whatever. And it comes out on some terrible labels, gets nowhere. And we don't sound like Venom. We now have 2 guitars. We have some singing, some harmony. This is not because of me. This is what they were doing anyway.
Sure.
We just, myself and Jim Clare, the guitarist, we facilitated it because we had these extra abilities or something, you know, not that we're better than Mantis or anything. We just had this different approach.
Different set of tools.
Yes. And, you know, mine was the Hollywood toolkit, and then Jim was the local British guy. So they wanted a local guy, and then Abaddon wanted some Hollywood hotshot, and then I show up. And so we do that for a while. We end up doing 3 shows in Japan. So I do a total of 7 shows with Venom.
Wait a minute. So how old are you at this point? You're like
21.
21. And
yeah.
you've been to England.
Yeah.
You've been to Brazil. You've been to Japan.
Yeah.
You must be thinking, like, even though you're not probably socking money away.
No, I had nothing.
Right. But you're thinking to yourself, I'm really doing it.
I am on my way. I've played in arenas. I've played to people that I don't know in person who are screaming and yelling, not just my friends who come to the keg party. I've got marshals, right? I'm wearing spandex. I have gauntlets. Like everything that was in Kerrang is in front of me, except the money.
Right.
and I'm not a songwriter yet either. I'm a contributor, or, you know, the first Venom record I did was fully formed pretty much by Mantis demos, and then we just reconfigured it. Sure. And so we do a few things. We've written a second album. We're heading in a more melodic direction. And then there's some kind of tiff with Abaddon, and he goes out of the band, and he keeps the name and gets Mantis back. And then we start Kronos. We take all the songs that we had written for the next Venom record and turn them into Kronos songs, and then write some more. And we're, you know, slogging along, trying to get something. And it just, you know, people want to hear Venom. And I'll say this, you know, honestly, for me, I acquired my taste for that band because I was in it. I didn't listen to them. I didn't care about them, whatever. They should have stopped at the 3rd album. 3 great albums: Welcome to Hell, Black Metal, At War with Satan. Done. Perfect. So we slog along with the Kronos thing, and that's when I end up taking the roadie stuff, because Kronos, if Venom wasn't making any real money for us, the Kronos project is definitely putting us in a deficit at that point, whether we're enjoying ourselves or not, you know. And I knew these guys. The guitar player in Brutal Truth was actually the bus driver on a Kronos tour, because he had a school bus with 4 bunks in it, you know, and like, you know, typical DIY underground metal shit. And so, you know, that's how I end up getting this roadie gig. And then, of course, as things are progressing after this Brutal Truth tour, the Cathedral guy quits. I'm working with them. I finally stop playing bass for them. I'm home trying to get my head together, plan the next part of the Kronos saga. And Carcass sent me a CD of Heartwork, and I'm like, oh, cool. Maybe Carcass is going on tour. I could stand to go out on tour, you know? So they send me, I said, this album sounds great. You know, I write a letter, and the phone rings and it's their manager. He's like, hey man, can you come on the tour? And I'm like, absolutely. I was hoping you'd call. He's like, well, we want you to play guitar. And I'm like, who's out? And you're like, Amot's out. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you're just changing the last name and it's all good to go, you know? And so then I joined up with them and did their Heartwork tour, which I love the album, first of all.
Yeah.
It's to this day a favorite. The tone is fantastic. I love Bill Steer's lead guitar playing. Ken Owen was my favorite of all those drummers at that period. And so I went straight over there, you know, like within days. They called me like, you know, how long do you need to learn the songs? Okay, I just need this long. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I'll come over this weekend. Let's do it. Let's go. And I sat up and I learned and learned and learned. And then I got to Bill Steer's parents' house and we sat in the kitchen every day, just shedding the riffs, and went out there and we, you know, just started doing stuff. And the first gig we did, it was Sleep, Voivod, and Carcass at the Limelight. And yeah, it's just, and it, you know, looking back on it, that's a pretty monumental lineup. At the time, you know, I was trying to talk to the Voivods and they weren't, I don't know if it was they were purposely wanting to speak French at me or if they weren't bilingual, you know? And so I was like a little miffed because I wanted to talk to the dude about his 7-string guitar, you know, and I don't know if they thought we shouldn't be headline. You know, there's a lot of tension with bands that you don't even know about.
Right. Of course.
And then of course I'm trying to remember all
even
my
bands
parts.
that are friends.
Yes. Yeah. Bands I've been in. And, you know, so I did that for a while. And basically when it came time for more movement forward with Sony, they informed me, you know, like the day before shit was going down, that I was just going to be a hired gun. And I wanted to be integral to the band because I love the band. And I did a lot of things with that band, such as got them endorsed, you know, because I figured out the endorsement thing a long time ago. And I knew like that was a powerful thing for us. If we all played Ibanez, this would be a good thing.
Sure.
And then
there was some co-marketing involved. And
then if you switch to Tama drums, then we have the whole Hoshino company behind us, you know. And they did do that, which is great. And so of course, you know, I quit the band because I was like, man, I want to be in the band.
Sure.
And so I was like, all right, fuck you guys, I'm out. And so I finished, you know, touring with them in '94. And then I just waffled around for a long time.
It's kind of crazy how you stumbled into that genre of metal accidentally.
Well,
that's a pretty unlikely way to end up like really embedded in that genre.
Well, you know, of course, the Venom part of it, once those guys found out that I had worked with Kronos, that gave me some kind of, I don't know,
cred.
I was more attractive to them as a musician. And also they knew I could play and learn fast. So they already knew me. They knew what they were getting. They knew I was out of control, you know, because at that point I wanted to be a rock and roll person and party and drink and chase women constantly,
sure.
You know? And so I was a little more extreme than some of those guys. And then some of them were more extreme than me at times. I can't say a bad word about any of them. You know, everyone did what they did,
sure.
acted the way they did, you know, so it's
all
cool.
And everyone was 30 years younger.
Yes. And the fact that people are still even in the business and working is amazing to me, you know? And so, you know, I just waffle around for a while after that. And then I have some family things go on where I have to be a grown up. And so I just kind of lay back. I start a little band, play a little, you know, trio band. And I start working in a guitar shop teaching. And I run into this cat named T-Bone Wolk in the guitar shop. And he's the bass player from Saturday Night Live, Hall and Oates, yada, yada. And he needs an assistant. So my boss says, you should hire Mike. He's really organized. He keeps alphabetizing the guitar books, and, you know, the strings are like actually all by brand, you know, all this. So I start working as T-Bone's assistant, and he calls me one day and says, hey man, you want to go on tour as John Oates guitar tech? And I was like, yeah, absolutely I do. So I end up doing that for a couple years. And
you guitar tech for John Oates.
For Oates, yeah. Yeah.
He was on the show. He's a hell of a nice guy.
He's amazing. He's, first and foremost, you know, there's a whole thing where people want to, first of all, rag on Hall and Oates, Hall and or Oates, you know,
right?
Short and tall, the tall guy, the little guy, whatever. John Oates, first of all, plays beautiful guitar.
He's fucking great.
And his finger picking, like Doc Watson style kind of country blues, amazing. His singing, fantastic. And interesting thing, and I don't know if he'll watch this, but you know, he didn't talk to me much when I worked for him. So I always was like, wow, Oates doesn't like me, you know? So one day T-Bone says to me in the middle of a tour, Oates is standing there and he goes, John, so how do you like having Mike here? And Oates goes, well, T-Bone, I'm not happy. I'm ecstatic. My guitars are so in tune. I was like, that one pause, I was like, he's going to fucking belt me, right?
He's going to fire me right now.
Right now.
Because
and I was like,
yeah.
And I'm like, shut up. And so I did that for a couple years. And then I worked for T-Bone up until his death all the time through being in bands. I was always handling stuff for him locally and sessions and stuff. And a few years go by, I'm doing this and that, trying to get the Kronos stuff happening. And
still working on the Kronos stuff.
Just trying. And, you know, we just can't get out of the quicksand. And so, you know, Venom reformed for a little while, then it falls apart. And then one day I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, you know, we could sell a lot of goddamn shirts. We just got to do a tour. So I call Kronos and I'm like, and he'll tell you a different story. This is the story. I called him because no offense to him, in his stories, everything started on Mount Olympus with him being born, you know, and all this stuff. And so I'm like, dude, let's put the band together. And I think there was something like there was a New Jersey Metal Fest was going to happen, and we were going to do, you know, fly in and do it. And that got bumped. So we put together this thing, and we end up putting out this record, Metal Black. And we end up headlining all the big festivals. And then we get a US tour, which gets chiseled down to 9 shows. And now, you know, if you do 9 shows across the whole country, you've just lost a shitload of money.
Yeah.
And you've put a lot of tension on everybody.
And spent a lot of money traveling.
Yes.
Past money.
So things just didn't work out. And I decided it was best for my financial and mental well-being to, can you hear that?
I can. Is that your
That's
ringtone?
my phone. It's Ingve. It'll go away in a second. I don't want to fuck anything up on the camera.
Yeah, it's fine.
Because
we're in it.
So good. So good. Yeah. So I just thought it was better if I just move along and, you know, Venom can do whatever Venom wants and I'm done. And so while I'm, you know, pulling that together, T-Bone calls me again. He's like, hey, can you take care of the tall guy?
Right.
I said, yeah, of course. You know, I always got along with Daryl very well. And he's very, you know, I wouldn't call him intimidating, but he has a specific way he likes things.
Sure.
So
let me ask you this. Your role as a tech is decidedly different touring and doing gigs with those guys than your previous experience driving a 15-passenger van
yes.
with Brutal Truth and Carcass.
Yes. And it's immediately a different level.
Right. How
is a bus.
Is there any awkward, like, do you feel awkward walking into that situation? Because it's a whole different vibe. Those stages even feel different. It's like there aren't any soft spots on the stages, you know?
Well, the thing is, I looked at it like my answer is yes. Hey, can you do this? Yes,
Right.
I can do this. And, you know, I had the couple years experience with Oates, and we were doing, you know, state fairs and theaters and casinos and things. And then, you know, a few years go by, I'm out of touch. Haha. And then I go start working for Daryl. And I'd gotten friendly with Daryl as much as, you know, a roadie can
Sure.
before. So when I went to work with him, I just decided, like, I'm not going to let him be in charge of me. I'm going to be in charge of this. Right.
Sure.
And because if you just keep giving an artist their way to push things their direction, nothing's going to get done technically.
Right.
You know, we have to commit, like, this is the amp. This is the pedal. The pedal goes here, right? The pedal's not going to be over here tomorrow. It's going to be there every day. And you got to give the artist something solid that's going to just, like, every day is the same.
They don't even have to think about it. It's unconscious.
Yeah. And what happened was Daryl was just starting the Daryl's House thing at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so he was actually moving into that giant house. So we finished like a South by Southwest event, and I flew back and I get to the studio because he has another house with a studio. And so it's potential spam as well. That's the best part. And so while I'm waiting to, you know, I'm going to drive home from the studio, it turns out that he's moving, and he's like, "Hey man, do you want to help me move?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'll do that," you know.
Sure.
So I stay for like 4 days and help him move stuff from the studio up to the house. And I end up staying at the house, and we hang out and eat steak and drink wine and have a good time. And then, you know, we start doing a lot of those shows. I did 30 episodes of that show. And basically
what was your role in the show?
Guitar tech for him.
Uh-huh.
And T-Bone and general lackey to move stuff.
Production
and then
assistant.
Yeah. And then, like, if you were the guest, I would help you with your guitar. And then, like, on Friday night before the show, T-Bone and I would go over and we'd sit down and go through all the tunes with Daryl, and I would do it too, so that I would know chord progressions. So if I have to, like, hey, Daryl, that's F sharp 7, man, you know?
Right.
And so that again leads into, hey man, why don't you play guitar on this song?
Right.
So they're having Patrick Stump from Fall Out Boy come on the show, and we're listening to Fall Out Boy, and they've got that Mesa crunch, that drop D thing.
Right.
And T-Bone's like, you know, I really think, you know, we should have Mike play rhythm on the show. And Daryl's like, yeah, just do it. Just do it. Fine. You know? And so I learn all the songs the night before because I'm working still.
Sure.
And so Patrick comes, and I give him an amp, and I got his guitar and I tune it. And I'm like, here you go, buddy. And then I walk across the room and I put on my Les Paul and start playing Fallout. And he's like, what the hell? And, so, you know, and then I go back to work when the songs I'm needed on are finished, you know.
Did you get a SAG card?
I did not. And it's funny you asked that because it was an independent show. There was no way to, because I speak on that show a lot. There's on all the segues where in between songs, and I'm standing there with Daryl, or at dinner or in the kitchen, you know, I'm always chiming in. You know, I have. Hey, let me help out with the chime inowitz. You know,
Right.
I've got an opinion. And, uh, and then later when T-Bone passed, we did an episode for T-Bone. And so I played on that too, of course, just out of tribute, And then once T-Bone was gone, that the scene there kind of deteriorated for me.
Right.
And so I moved along, and I was literally unemployed. And then, again, my friend Derek Sharinian, I owe him a lot. He's my co-manager. He calls me. He's like, dude, hey, can you go on tour? I got a guy. And I'm like, yeah, man, I need a gig. I've been out of work. And he goes, well, it's Joe Bonnamassa. I'm like, get him on the phone right now. Let's go.
I mean, he's already a big name at this point. What year is it?
This is 2011 or 2012. So he's put out his Royal Albert Hall thing. He's just, he's right there now.
Right.
And good timing, because I don't want to get back in the van. And so
well, how does he know him?
From Black Country Communion.
Got it. Right.
So they're in the put together, metal, hard rock band. And so, Joe's reached out to Derek because he knows Derek's a guitar guy. And he says, you must have a guy that's reliable, someone I can count, because he'd been through a few guys. And as soon as, I got the call, I was like, well, this is perfect, because this guy plays great. He plays loud, and he has a 59 Les Paul, which I'm very interested in. So basically, Joe contacts me. He says, can you send your resume to my tour manager? I said, I don't have a resume. I work with Hall and Oates. He goes, that sounds fine.
Right.
Call my guy. Call the guy. We negotiate the money. I asked for more than I was ever going to get. Therefore, they paid me less than I wanted, and probably a little more than they wanted to. And so,
that's how it works.
Yeah. And it's a perfect storm for both of us at the time, because I really wanted to get with a guy that I could work with side by side. And as much as I love Daryl and working with Daryl, his choice of instruments and tone are not what I don't want to play an acoustic guitar.
Right. You're not passionate about it.
No. But then out comes this dude ripping licks with 412s and jubilees.
And he's a fucking madman.
Right. And his chops are next level chops. And he turns out to be a super cool, normal cat.
Right.
And so, and then we fast forward, 9 years go by like that. And, we tour 8 months a year and keep working on other projects too. And never mind the shopping is really, the whole point of doing gigs is to go shopping. And, of course, then we have COVID comes and stops everybody in their tracks.
Sure.
And so throughout the COVID thing, we tried to do some gigs, and it was very complicated with the masks and the testing and the temperature checks, and you could segregated the audience, you've got to sit over here, and things just weren't moving along forward, and so had to make a move to do something, again, reinvent what I'm doing in order to survive,
Sure.
Because if you're not gigging, you're not earning. And so last year I moved on from the organization, and we still, we did an amicable split, I like to say we're not dating anymore, but we still talk.
Right.
I mean, I have his guitar here, it's all cool.
It seems like so many things that you've done, so many opportunities have come along. You've kind of not stumbled into, but you've been in the right place. You've been recommended for, and they're none of them are necessarily things that you have set your sights on as a goal and then gone after, right?
Yeah.
If you had, I guess I have a couple questions in sort of in summary. Like, if you had your druthers, would you be would you be playing in a band, or would you be working for a band, or for an artist on a high level, like the Hall and Oates thing or the Bonamassa thing, where you get to go out and it's just like Disneyland every day with gear? And then, yeah, so like that first, please.
Okay, for one question, my cam looks frozen. How
Yeah,
for
no,
you?
it's okay. It'll
Oh,
be all
it's
right.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh, I see. Okay, it just okay. Um, uh, you know, of course, I want to be the guy who's sleeping late,
right.
and I want this rig set up for me, preferably set up early in the morning by Joe Bonnamassa himself for me.
Sure. Yeah, that would be
um,
wonderful.
I like, you know, this is a thing that caused tension with other musicians I work with who wanted to have their perceived image maintained. Uh, I don't care if I'm going to load your amp in or play in your band. As long as I don't have to go to a job that I hate, and
Sure.
there's plenty, and you know, there's plenty to hate about touring. Airports, taxis, people, fans who are boisterous and pushy,
Local crew,
local crew
fucking, yeah,
and you know,
chip on their shoulder.
there's plenty of great local crew.
Absolutely.
You know, like I could go work at the theater locally to me, but I don't want to be the guy who's like, you know, I used to be have 5 buses, you assholes, you know, like,
Right.
and I would do that. But the thing is, I always just thought it was, if you're in the music business, whether you're slinging guitars in a shop, you're playing in a cover band, you're a studio guy, you're a crew member, you're the lead guitarist for whoever, long as you connected, you're in the game. And I love guitar. I love shredding guitar players. I love amps with super loud amps, you know. And I mean, sure, I'd like to have a band that was doing all the stuff that the bands I work for do.
Right.
You know, I'd like a reason to own all these flight cases other than what I used to do, you know, because I know they're worth about $30 each now. And, you know, and, but as you get older, to try to launch a music career,
uh,
and especially now, there's not, you know, anybody can make a record in their home.
right.
There's nothing, there's no
Nobody
secret.
cares.
Nobody cares. You know, a great example, it doesn't matter if you have a Neumann mic and a Neve preamp. It doesn't matter because you can get a virtual one.
Yeah. I've got you know, a full bank of virtual plugins on my View A thing. They sound pretty good.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of times when I'm recording here, it's the room's too small to blaze these amps. So I just use the aux box,
Yeah. Got
and
one of those.
and it's fantastic.
It's fucking
It,
awesome.
and you know, it's funny, you know, you can program different things in
Yeah.
there. I've never touched anything.
Yeah. Me neither.
I just
It's
turned it
like,
on.
fuck, sounds great.
It already sounds good. And remember when you didn't know about all this junk, if you could just hear your guitar back, was like, wow, I'm amazing. You know? And
I'm a wizard.
you know, and it's interesting though, but like you said, like I accidentally took these gigs, or they came available to me by accident. You know, my mission was at to work on my band at the time and get signed and whatever and go on tour. And the thing is, all those things were spillover events from being a
Right.
guitar tech. You know, a few years ago, Joe wanted to play some tunes where he had recorded stuff with another guitar player. So he's like, "Hey, can you learn these songs?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can. I'll learn whatever, buddy. I actually know most of them because I'm 110 years old. You
Right.
know, I learned all this stuff when weren't even born." And so then I started playing rhythm for him, and play the song, run off stage, tune some guitars, hand them over, come back out later. And thankfully his tour manager knows how to tune, actually knows how to play guitar really well too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so could cover the bases while you were on stage.
yeah, and we trusted him to do it, and it's a little shocking though to walk out, with him cold. They're all warmed up, they're firing on all cylinders, right? And then
I just saw a video on Instagram this morning of him just like, oh, warming up before the gig, and I'm like,
oh yeah, he's warming up, and it's like, and you're like, what? Yeah, he does that every day. He's back there.
Say what?
and so like you walk out there with that band, whatever lineup it is, there's no slouches,
right?
And if you don't come out there like a total assault, they'll leave you behind, and I mean, I didn't have a monitor or anything. I just walk out. I didn't even have my own rig. I just borrowed an amp,
right.
Borrow a guitar. And the last time we did it, a few years ago, I brought a Charvel on tour, and just because I knew we were going to do Royal Albert Hall, and I figured I would be possibly the only guy other than David Gilmour to ever have a Charvel at Royal Albert Hall. So
did you catch any shit for playing the Charvel on stage from anyone?
No,
not even guitar nerds in the crowd that they wouldn't want to talk to you after, and like
the thing is with of course it all starts with Joe. Everyone's focused on his collection, and then I've got notoriety because of being associated with him in the vintage world,
right?
And I've been involved in the vintage world for years and years. I used to work for this collector guy who had 1,000 vintage everythings, all the stuff in the books, and that's where I learned about it. And so everybody also knows that I'm a rock dude, and that I'm interested in Jacksons and Hamers and Charvels and down the line, ESP. And of course, yeah, I'm interested in a 59 Les Paul, but I'm short about 325 grand right now. So
sure,
I can go buy a Charvel. I can spend 2 or 3 grand and not ruin my future.
And let's be honest, in 1978, 79, 80, when we were salivating over guitar magazines, nobody gave a fuck about a Les Paul. Nobody gave a fuck about a Les Paul until Slash came along in the 80s, all through the 80s.
And his was a copy.
Right.
Yeah. And I was at a point then, especially like say once I got an endorsement, why am I buying a guitar? They're going to give me one. I can't wait till they build my next cool guitar, with my design or whatever. And I'm sure if I had been applying myself to shopping back then when I had no money, right? Because literally, if I was making $500 a week touring in your band, I was spending $600 having a good time. So, I'm not going to go buy guitars and waste all that booze money.
Life's for living.
Yeah, and it's really the people they are snobby in a way. Some of the vintage guys, and they're very. I'll call it they're very crippled musically because they got this whole concept that if you play anything remotely technical, that you're not playing with feeling.
Right.
And
it's like Peter Green
or die.
That's it.
And the thing is like, I'll give anybody, any blues guy who's got feeling, because they all got feeling. Everyone feels something. Go toe to toe with Yngwie. Have a good time. Let me know how that works out.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's, you could, it brings a good point. One time Zach Wilde sat in, and if you run into him, you can
With
ask
Joe.
him about, yeah. And you can ask him, he'll tell you, he calls it the Bonham Massacre. And
that sounds exactly like something you would say.
And you know, basically what it is Zach, and that's it. And he came in and he was Zach. And then they got in the middle and started trading notes. And Joe did what he does best. He turned down and blazed with just, you know, like you had to be quiet.
Right.
And where do you go? Zach's already done all this, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a great trick of Joe's, is to get down to whisper volume and still have the headroom from the high wattage amps, you know? And then he can just rip those, you know, like those super fast groups of 5 and 6s, and it's like, whoo. But, you know, this perception of musicians, if you play fast, you're not playing with feeling. Those people are usually people who haven't put the time in to get beyond a certain level of the 5-note scale. You know,
working on my vibrato, bro.
Yeah. Well, and John Sykes called and said, "Too bad, already got it covered." You know,
yeah.
Or Zach Wilde's vibrato is fantastic.
There's not any vibrato left for anyone else.
No,
work on your straight notes. Work on clean picking.
And you know, Yngwie's vibrato it's just glorious,
fucking wild.
And yeah, you're not going to ask Yngwie to come over and front your KC and the Sunshine cover band. You know,
I bet he could do it though.
You know, if he applied himself. I mean, he's definitely, he goes down a certain street, but the thing is, it's real.
Yeah.
You know, he's never wavered from that. I met Yngwie. He won't remember this, but I met him when he was in Alcatraz, and he bumped some smokes off me on the street, you know? Right. And I was like, oh my God, Yngwie, you know, and he's got the boots on and the jeans and the hairdo. And
he didn't go through a grunge phase like Kiss did.
He didn't change anything about any of it. It's always been that. And even you look at all the greats, they've pretty much stayed their path.
Right.
You know, and these guys that flip-flop to catch on to something, you know, some metal bands changed to be a little more pretty at a point. Some bands put less solos.
Hey man, I like Cold Lake.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say it.
I'm into it.
I opened for them.
I celebrate the entire catalog.
I opened, Kronos formerly Venom, opened for Cold Fake.
Right.
There were kids with signs, like, you know, cardboard, Cold Fake in the crowd. And this was in New York City as well.
Right.
And I remember those guys, Tom Warrior and those guys, they didn't want to interact with us. And we were hooligans at the time. We were like, you know, we were already drunk from yesterday, you know?
Right.
And it was a weird gig. And also we were trying to go in that direction, more melodic or whatever you want to call it. And I noticed that the New York crowd responded best to the original Venom material, you know? And, you know, we used to play a portion of At War with Satan, you know, not the whole side of the record, but a portion of it. And that would get people ballistic as soon as it started. The pit was going. And I remember thinking that night when we opened for Celtic Frost, like, these guys are going to have a hard time once we leave, because we ended with At War with Satan. And it's like, where do you go from there?
Right.
You know, it's like, if you came out and you opened with War Pigs, you can go home.
Do? Right.
Or or you play Cashmere, like, okay, Cashmere, greatest riff ever written, all done, we're fine.
Yeah. Good night.
And yeah, it is interesting though that people have you should play this kind of guitar. I saw Josh Smith, who plays with Joe. He's got a signature Ibanez. And I saw in his Instagram a few months ago, somebody commenting, oh, you should be playing this and that. And Josh was like, my guitar sounds just fine.
That's great. Yeah.
Like, and Josh can play any guitar. He could play a vintage whatever, a Tele, it's going to sound like him. He plays the way he plays, and just like anybody. I mean, if I go plug into Van Halen's rig, it's going to sound just like my rig.
Nobody, right, exactly. Nobody shows up at any other job site in the world and is like, you should be using a different hammer.
Yeah. Oh, you don't use DeWalt's? Oh,
yeah. Oh, you shithead.
I got my. Yeah. What kind of Sawzall you got?
Right.
I mean, maybe you ask because it's got more power or something, but you don't go home and look at your collection of Sawzalls.
Right.
Maybe a fine furniture maker is all about his chisels and stuff.
It's a fickle community.
This is a Swedish. It really is, for being such an open, supposedly free lifestyle of freedom and rocking and rolling and partying and having a great time. It's got a lot of rules.
Yeah.
And I'm not breaking as many rules as I get older, but I'm still in spirit. Like, let's close this bar.
Yeah.
At 5
in our minds. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of happy hour, we're blazing out of here.
See, and all I can do is look in the picture and see the Steve Stevens guitar there.
Oh yeah, man. So here's the thing. All through in the 80s, like I was saying, nobody gave a fuck about a Les Paul. That's when I had a Les Paul. I had a Les Paul not because I wanted one, because my uncle got one from a drug dealer for $150 or something, and he brought it home. And he's like, here's your guitar. It's the same one that, these old guys play. And I was just like, fuck. It's better than my Predator, but shit, man. Or my Patriot or whatever it was. And all I wanted a Charvel so bad. A Charvel or an Ibanez, of course, because Paul Gilbert and Satriani, right, and Vai, and the Charvel because, Jake Ely, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much because of Jake Ely, who is the great unsung guitarist of the 80s.
I actually have a Jake Ely Charvel they sent me recently. In it, I haven't posted or talked about it because they don't launch the guitar until the 29th of April.
Oh.
So I'm going to do a little filming with it, but it's the Mexican,
like the $1,200 one,
$12.99 version of that, and super cool. And I asked for that guitar specifically because it didn't have a tremolo. I wanted a hardtail guitar that I could tune to whatever real quick, and of course I love Jake, so that'll be making an appearance in the coming days. Nice. When they launch and stuff. But yeah, Jake's guitar wasn't even a Charvel. It was a Fender Strat that was reworked by a guy he knew that worked at Charvel, which, right, if you look closely at the white Charvel that he had, it has a bullet truss rod. And if you ever see the back, it has a 3-bolt neck, like on a Fender. Right. And so it was a sunburst 70s Fender Strat, and they recarved it and then put a Charvel logo on it.
So it was a pig.
Yeah, and it was just his guitar, and his roommate or something worked at Jackson and said, dude, I can hook you up with this cool paint job and, make your guitar. And I guess Jake felt like he was not as cool as some of the other guys, you know, in the neighborhood because he had this boring 70s sunburst Strat, you know.
Right.
So he wanted to be cool like Rough Cut or something, you know.
He didn't have snakeskin.
Right.
Though that's a fucking cool ass guitar.